Hi, this is Chris McKaylee with a brief video podcast. This is my introduction to legislative drafting. And legislative drafting or bill drafting is the work of professional attorneys who provide their services usually in a centralized office for the US Congress. There's both a US House and US Senate Office of Legislative Counsel. And then, of course, in the state legislatures around the country, and these attorneys draft bills, resolutions, constitutional amendments, at least for the 24 states that have this form of direct democracy. As I mentioned, both houses of the US Congress have separate offices of legislative counsel. And here in the state of California, we also have an office of the legislative counsel with between 75 and 80 attorneys who draft thousands of bills and more than 10,000 amendments every year to these measures. And all the other states in this country have a variation of a central drafting office. So, who are these people? They're professionals around the country who draft legislative measures. And there's some limited training in legislative drafting because most law schools don't distinguish legislative from other forms of legal document drafting. While many law schools in this country offer courses in, say, constitutional law and legal writing, only a handful cover statutory interpretation, and very little time is spent on the drafting of laws or regulations. In fact, there are only a handful of law schools that offer specific drafting clinics to their students. And there are a few international ones. The University of London and its School of Advanced Legal Studies actually offers an LLM or a Master of Laws in legislative drafting. Athabasca University in Alberta, Canada, and a few other countries offer a graduate diploma in legislative drafting. So what are they? They're individuals who draft legislative measures, including bills and resolutions. They also advise legislator clients on the constitutionality of proposed legislation. And many federal and state executive branch agencies have lawyers who draft what we refer to as secondary legislation or regulations and legal notices, executive orders, and similar types of documents. Where do they do so? These professionals draft measures at state houses and in executive branch administrations across the country, in hundreds of agencies and departments. There are just a handful of professional drafters really in the private sector. Most are employed in the public sector. When most legislatures meet only a few months every year, while some states such as California and the Congress are considered full-time legislative bodies. Nonetheless, these legislative drafters utilize their craft throughout the year to draft measures at the request of their legislator clients. And for those drafters in the executive branch, this agency work can readily occur throughout the calendar year. How? Professional bill drafters utilize skills that they've developed through drafting measures. Primarily, they get it through on the job experience and some training by their agencies or departments or offices. Unlike poetry or creative writing or other forms of written expression, bill drafters have to select their words carefully. They have to avoid unnecessary prose, write simply, consistently, and try to ensure lack of ambiguity in their writing. Bill drafters thoroughly research their client bill proposals and understand the relevant laws that exist today, as well as how it's intended to be amended or repealed or added to. Legislative drafting is often described more as an art form than a science. In other words, three drafters may come up with three different versions of the same statute, and each would have, those who support their draft or those who are detractors of it. Those who draft legislative and regulatory language have the privilege of taking bill ideas or proposed solutions to important public policy programs or problems and turn them into the written word statutes and regulations. And obviously, they play a very indispensable role in both the legislative and regulatory processes at the state and federal levels.